And to discuss more about this topic, we have in our studio Ms. Ima Abdulrahim, the Executive Director of the Habibie Center right here in Jakarta. Hello, Ima.
Hello.
Now, you actually confirmed the letter exists, and now what's behind it? This letter sent to President Joko Widodo, why? I mean, is there a political reason, or is this purely human interest?
It's purely a human interest, I would say. One thing that we have to understand is that Habibie's rejection towards the death penalty is not something new. This is not brand new news. This is something that he's held very dearly. It's part of his faith that he is of the conviction that the death penalty is wrong and that it should not be applied. This is something that he has believed, and he believes this is part of his religious teachings. He's a Muslim, he's a devout Muslim, and he feels that he is of the conviction that life and death is the prerogative right of God. And these are his words. He believes that this is God's right to give you life, to give you death, and who are we as humans, basically? I mean, these are his words. So for him, this is not something new. People who have, worked with him all over in Indonesia and the world know that this is his stance on it. If I'm not mistaken, during his presidency, there were no executions. So he would not sign anything that would lead to an execution. So for him, this is a principle decision. And the reason why he wrote the letter is purely for humanity's sake. You know, he feels that he feels, you know how Indonesians affectionately calling him Eyang, right, as grandfather. He feels that as Eyang, he needs to voice this. He needs to provide a plea or whatever that can happen so that this doesn't go on. So in his letter, again, we focus more on the fact that he has asked for the death penalty and the executions to stop.
Yeah, why now after a third round of execution?
I think it's, and again, before he has voiced it, and perhaps in a more personal matter, it's not in a letter. I think it's something that, he's always mentioned this. I think approximately 2 months ago, I think he actually made a public statement. I think it was at a book launch in the Constitutional Court. There was a book launch on the politics of death penalty, and he was invited and he attended. And I think, of course, the journalist asked him that question, and he says, this is not new for me. He has always rejected the death penalty.
Has President Joko Widodo responded to this letter?
Not formally, and that's not something that Habibie has expected. I think that's it's for him. This is his heart calling, and I guess in the words of the cabinet secretary Pak Pramono has already mentioned that they have received and read the letter, and for Habibie that's enough. He's not asking for a special audience or anything, and he feels that this is just he's part of a larger picture that can contribute.
Now in this letter, he specifically mentions Zulfikar Ali. Why not mention other convicts in there? Why specifically there? Why Ali? I'm quite curious about that.
So if we know about Habibie, and I think a lot of people, a lot of the viewers perhaps knows about Habibie quite well, he's a man of detail, and he's a man who will not mention anything unless he's sure of it. He always asks for facts. He always asks for evidence. He always asks for proof. And he always relies on the most trustworthy sources. So Zulfikar's file was given to Habibie in the most complete, and his file was the only file that he has received. And so he was able to make an informed decision on this letter and mentioning him in the letter, and he was not able to do that about the others because he doesn't know, and he doesn't want to rule. He doesn't want to make a judgment on something that he's not 100% sure. And this came from a very reliable source, a very trusted source. Again, it was information compiled by his lawyers, compiled by non-government organizations and advocates, but also presented to him by someone that he trusted very dearly.
know that Zulfikar Ali was spared from the execution. How does Pak Habibie think about it? Yeah, yeah.
You know, he doesn't feel that this is his doing, by far from. This is still still the prerogative of the government. You know, he's not looking to be the hero of this. No, there's still a lot of things that we have to do. But if you really read his letter very carefully, it's almost an invitation. Let's find an alternative. Let's find a way to stop, you know, drug trafficking and the abuse of narcotics.
Sweden.
And mentions that there are examples in the world of countries where they don't have the death penalty, but they're able to, you know, continue their war on drugs and successfully. So, I think the way I read the letter, and again I verified it with them was my interpretation correct? He says yes, it is. Let's, you know, with the Habibie Center, and I know Contrast is doing so much, Human Rights Watch Group is doing so much. There are so many elements, there's so many activists and so many great people out there, experts in their field that know what there's, you know about this more than we do. It's more of an invitation to let's put our heads together and find ways. It's not. I'm very saddened to hear people who misunderstand this as Pak Habibie's not being concerned on the war on drugs. Actually, it's the complete opposite. He has concern on the war on drugs, and he wants this to be solved. Let's find an alternative together. So that, I mean, when you read the letter, you kind of feel that that's what he's asking for.
And this alternative that you're talking about, taking Sweden for example, what examples and ways that we can imitate from them right now in the short term, at least in Indonesia?
I think we need to review some of the measures that we're taking on the war on drugs. Again, let's work together with law enforcement. Let's work together with the Attorney General's office. Let's, you know, it shouldn't be an us or a them kind of. It needs a concerted effort, I think, to fight the war on drugs. And I think other countries are doing that. They don't alienate former drug users, for example. You know, they those that have gone through the journey or the fight or the struggle against drug abuse, you know, they know best. Perhaps we need to learn from somewhere. But death penalty is definitely, to Pak Habibie and to the Habibie Center, is not an option that we have to resign to. There are so many different options that we can resort to fight the war on drugs, and I think that's where we want to go towards.
Before we go, last question. I spoke to Putri Kanesi of Contrast previously. She's not optimistic of a moratorium for maybe the next convicts.
Yes.
What about from your perspective? Is it possible? This is the third row of executions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, anything is possible. I'm an optimist. I'm a true optimist. Anything is possible if we approach it in the right way. We're not trying to criticize, and again, this is the prerogative of the government, and this is Pak Jokowi's presidency, and this is something that he has to go through as well. And we are here to support that. What Pak Habibie has asked is for him to consider, to review. It's not a plea that is not without consideration. Pak Habibie fully considers the challenges that the government is having, and so is basically actually reaching out a helping hand. Let's work on this together.
All right.
So we should take it as that.
Secretary
Thank
Director
you
of the
so
Habibie
much
Center,
for coming.
Ibu Ima, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.